Welcome to the United We Scan podcast, the podcast by rural carriers for rural carriers. The views expressed in this podcast do not reflect the views or opinions of the United States Postal Service or the National Rural Letter Carriers Association. We ask that you please consult your assigned union representative for guidance in your local area. Make sure you like this podcast, share with your fellow rural carriers, and subscribe to be notified each time a new episode is uploaded. Please rate this podcast 5 stars where applicable, and leave a comment or question for us below. Thank you. Now, here are the hosts of the United We Scan podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. Episode 47. We've got some news announcements, and then we're going to touch on some views on training, because training is always the hot topic no matter what. I think it's something that we can cover every single episode to one degree or another. Your week, Josh?
My week was pretty good. Had one RCA that was struggling that I was working with that they let go Monday. Had a second RCA that's just about as new that was doing pretty good. Told her, her car broke down and they went to send her to a different station on Tuesday. And she's like, I don't have transportation to get there. Was told if she goes home, not to come back. Her service is no longer needed. For the person above my manager's head, told her to report back to work Thursday. So it was a pretty good week, and she's the sub that they told was assigned to my route. So at least I know I have one dedicated person carrying my route when I'm off. That seems very promising. I've got a short week this week coming up, so
Nobody cares.
somebody cares.
I don't care.
I don't care if you care.
Kristen doesn't care
Obviously, she cut me off before I could
because
say it.
she's still going to be working on Friday.
Oh,
And Saturday.
Jeez, Bill, just cut her legs out from underneath her there.
Well, they
I
planned
won't
it
tell
this
you all
way.
I'm off on Monday too.
They planned it this way so she'd have to work the holiday.
Yep,
Yeah.
I know they did.
Yeah.
All
We'll
right,
get
James.
into that.
How was your week?
Well, we'll just free flow this whole thing. Well,
Might
my
as
week
well.
was pretty normal overall. Did get the announcement that they're going to be doing the Google Street Views on our line of travel manager, but our supervisor, 204B, who is a rural carrier, said that if there are any discrepancies, that he will be sitting with the carriers to make sure they're right. They're going to go through all the traffic control points with the carrier to make sure they're right. But other than that, I did not appreciate having a box holder come in for Friday. I would have been happier if it came in on Thursday instead of Friday. I'd like to get out early on my Friday because I don't have to work Saturday like some people. And
Bill.
Me.
And then this weekend, I went and helped out at my friend's Model Railroad Museum that's opening up again this year. Largest O-scale 2-rail layout, and they're getting it all buttoned up and ready to go after the summer work session on it. And I usually help out on my Sunday off day there, so that way they have enough people to chase trains and stuff, because they have a lot of them. But other than that, that's pretty much my week. And how about you, Bill? How was your week?
Oh, my week was pretty good. Hold on. Kiss from my wife. Flats are piling up now. Friday, 12 tubs. Saturday, 12 tubs. Political mail is still heavy. Parcels are running about 220 a day. Let's see, got called in, forced in Saturday because our superior supervisor forgot she handed out 2 leave slips and already had an open route scheduled. So I would have walked into a mess on Monday. And I said, well, I guess I'll volunteer then. I'd like to know if any of our listeners go through the same problem with scheduling. This seems just to be a pandemic in Westchester. But besides that, we got our local meeting on Tuesday. Food and beverages provided. And we will be discussing your Christmas overtime. We'll be discussing the future of our delegates and how we're picking them and how we're reimbursing people who go to our state convention.
That sounds like a pretty good meeting there.
You have your choice of turkey, Italian, or roast beef hoagies, macaroni and cheese bowls, and then whatever fluids I decide that are deemed appropriate for our group, which are non-alcoholic.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had
My
a couple alcoholic meetings that got out of control, so we put the kibosh on that.
Yeah, no alcohol at ours either. Unless they purchase it themselves, but yeah.
We don't even have meetings where they serve alcohol, so that solves that problem.
Right.
So how was your week, Kristen?
Mine was okay. Monday was normal. Tuesday, Amazon didn't show up until after all the carriers left. Tuesday
Ooh.
was an awesome day. I was back and clocked out by like 9 minutes after 1 p.m.
I hate people like you.
Doesn't happen too often, but I'll take it when I
I
can
haven't
get
had that
it.
happen in years.
Yeah, that was in at 8 o'clock and out at 1. My 45K. Of course, Wednesday I got double Amazon, but it still wasn't. It was big boxes, but it was still only 138, so I won't even count that as a heavy day, really. And yesterday was extremely light too. And Friday. Was it Friday or Thursday? I think it was Thursday. Thursday, I only had 2 large boxes on the floor of the LLV. Everything else was on the shelves, and yesterday, everything was on the shelves. I didn't have a single package on the floor of the LLV. I was done. Oh, what time I was done yesterday? It was probably around just shy of 3, I think.
See,
So
you're the
no,
carrier.
it's
Yeah, you're the carrier our president was talking about getting done way under their evaluation.
not really. Normally I'm pretty close, but this week's been kind of light for us for a weird change. I called it the calm before the storm because I know how this route gets in pink time. So I'll take the lighter days. First announcement, I did get told, I think it was Thursday or Friday, I will officially be a regular carrier November 18th on the 45K.
Yay!
I'll
Yeah,
send you.
no.
I'll send you a case of Crown Royal salted caramel.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, November 18th is my effective date. So I have one more pay period as an RCA.
Yeah, they wanted
That-
to keep you in RCA during the holiday.
Yeah, the only one in the office to come in and case all 6 routes. Yeah, that'll be fun. Whatever. We do have a new RCA starting this week training, rehire from a former office. So it was a close enough timeline so he didn't have to redo anything. So basically it was just get him into the payroll and get him in the office. He didn't have to do orientation, academy, LLV training, none of that was all that was still good. So I'll be doing his OJI on Tuesday and Wednesday. And I think they may try and pull him in Saturday with me to at least just case up his primary route while I hit up the other 5 routes. But yeah, that was my week. Fairly simple and was a bit lighter week. I'm not complaining one bit. James, you
That's
have some
awesome.
announcements from what I understand.
Yes, I do. And the very first important one that we have actually came from the Decertify NRLCA Facebook group. Firstly, they've gotten 16,500 signatures on the decertification group, and more are still coming in. But the person who started the decertification, who is a good member in good standing with the union, dues paying and everything, has stated that none of the unions that they can get a hold of are interested in taking over for the NRLCA, and they're switching to their plan B. So that means the decertification movement is on its last legs. But as we always have said, though we do not support the decertification movement, we believe in one unified craft. So we will welcome them to be involved in this podcast as well as on our Facebook groups with open arms. Because no craft member should be left behind and no craft member should be fighting with each other. We're one craft doing one job and we're all here for each other. The next announcement I have is we've gotten quite a few people who have responded to us about our comments on using the load truck feature when you're on the start load vehicle time. And I said it was a time wasting effort, but the meaning behind that was that once you start doing that, you have to continue doing that in order to keep it in your evaluation. We did not mean that you had to do it or you shouldn't be doing it. There have been many different fights all the way up to step 4s over the load truck feature. And it is carrier discretion whether to use the load truck feature. Don't let us just dictate what you do.
If you want to use the load truck rather than marking your parcels, that's fine, but that is case time, not load time. If they give you the directive you have to use load truck, I said that you should be doing it under your load vehicle time, starting and load vehicle. Otherwise, it's while you're in the case sorting your parcels out.
Or you could just be like where I'm at with this route already, no matter how heavy of a day it is, and I just wheel the cart out and organize them in the truck in order and don't mark anything anymore.
Well, that's what you get for being a regular.
I'm not a regular yet, though.
You're
Not yet.
becoming one already. You're already turning into one. You're doing the route as a regular would already.
Okay, this question was sent to me recently. This popped up in listener chat, but I kind of want to touch on this because I did get a DM about this week as well. Any idea when the 4003 will be opened back up so we can take the low option? Why do we have to choose before we know the result of the routes? I had a DM this week come through about something similar, but this was let me pull it up real quick so I can
quote it verbatim.
Exactly, yes, so I'm not misspeaking. So why would they not be offering the high-low option after the last count? I lost $10,000. I can't afford that much of a cut. I need to go to a J route. And then, of course, I explained that you choose at the end of the each mini mail survey. This is in response on another social media group about high low option and when you can choose it. And I had responded that, at the end of the mini mail surveys. So you can only choose high option at those times, but you can go from high to low at any time if you were to change your mind. You have to be, the 10 years from retirement computation date in order to qualify. Their response was, I was told that they have not yet opened it up for us to elect that yet. I had elected after the last count to go to a J route, and then after this count, my route went up an hour, and he said I had to stay at a K route until they opened that option back up.
Can you explain the 10-year option again for our listeners?
10 year from retirement computation date.
Not 10 years of service.
No.
Right.
This
So,
is a very confusing thing for some people because in our office, we have a guy who's up for retirement this year. He has his 10-year computation in there. And he said, well, I don't have 10 years in, Bill. I'm like, let me explain this to you in English. And after I showed it to him in writing, and printed, he goes, well, I want the high option. I'm like, there you go. But since we don't have any stewards in our office anymore, That's
Yep.
a very confusing aspect for some people to grasp.
Yes, it is because you hear, well, it's said in many different ways, and that's why it confuses people. Well, you have to be a regular for 10 years. No, it's 10 years from your computation date. If you're a PTF, your career that goes towards your computation date. If you have military time that you could buy back, that goes towards your computation date.
If you bought it back
If you bought it back, yes.
and
That's
actually have it paid off.
Yes.
And if you were part of that time where you could buy back some of your RCA time,
Which
because there
was
was a time when you could.
back before what, 88?
Yes,
1888. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
1988. Yes,
Yeah.
when they changed the law on that.
And there
Ah,
is a bill
again,
that was
there is a
presented
bill.
recently to allow us to do that. So reach out to, I forget what the bill number is at the moment. We'll find it and post it on all of our socials. Reach out to your
Leg-
state representatives and legislatives. Let them know you want them to support that bill. And actually, I think on the Nationals website, they have a form letter that you can post. You can print out and fill in and send to them.
It's either on ours or on the NALC's.
I think
I
they
know
all
the
have it.
NALC has one. Yeah.
But honestly, your representatives like to hear personal stories more than form letters.
Yes.
So if you can, put some personal touch to that, I would definitely recommend it.
Especially
Yeah.
people that have been RCAs for 8, 10, 12, 15 years.
I will have 8 years, 11 months, and 4 days.
Hence why I said that.
Yes. 8 years,
I
11
have,
months, and 4 days when I go regular on the 18th of November. Yes.
I
All
have
right.
another
And in
comment.
regard, I would say in
Yeah,
regards to the Portable 3s,
Uh-huh.
they're
they
gone.
were supposed to open up on October 7th. However, there was an issue with it and other software. So they had to close it out and make a patch so they could work it, and was supposed to reopen like about the 20th, but for whatever reason, they have not, headquarters has not reopened it yet. I haven't heard anything since a week and a half, 2 weeks ago in that regard, since about that. But it was software issue on them opening it back up for district to put the higher low options in.
When isn't it a software issue at headquarters?
Well, if they would just turn around and invest a little bit of money in technology, it wouldn't be so bad. I know many different government agencies that have updated their technology in the last 10 years, and it made so much of a difference to how things were done, and it made things so much more efficient. And it cost a lot less over time doing it that way. But they are so short-sighted that if it's a short-term cost, because you have to remember our postmaster is involved in the stock market. And what do anybody involved in the stock market do? They look at short-term gains over long-term security.
Yep.
So that's what they're doing at the post office too, is short-term costs are too much for them, even though there's long-term gains over that.
I thought it was buy low, sell high.
That was what it was originally, but then you got all these well, I'm not going to really get into this discussion, but your hedge fund managers is all I have to say. All right. I do have a comment that somebody made about the load truck feature, and you actually posted this, Kristen. Did you know a majority of postmasters do not know the difference between load truck on the main menu and the start load vehicle in the rural activity scans, and have been telling ARCs and RCAs to just use the load truck feature?
Why am I
Of
not
course they
surprised?
don't. Of course they don't. Management got less training than we did.
And
They
they're the
didn't
ones
even.
responsible for training us.
I mean, Kristen was there when I called out the district manager on the fact he wasn't training his postmasters,
And you left
the
him
regional manager.
slightly
Yeah.
speechless too, because he couldn't answer
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
because he
was there.
couldn't answer why he couldn't make it mandatory that management got this training,
Yeah.
because he didn't get the training either. But one thing you want to make sure is you make sure that your RCAs
James, he
know.
didn't get it, or
No,
he didn't pay attention to it like he claimed the postmasters did.
he probably didn't pay attention to it either. But at least he didn't talk in as many circles as DeJoy did at National Convention.
Oh, let's not even go down that rabbit hole, please.
Well, to follow
I
that one
don't
up,
I don't have the front end loader out ready to go, okay?
Oh, some
We don't need
people
to be
started
digging that
getting.
hole right now.
Well, some people started getting their print copies of the National Convention proceedings, so I had to make that comment.
Yeah, I
All
know.
right, we need to keep moving on this. So the biggest thing is we talked about how people learn last episode, how people understand in different ways. So we put out to everybody that we wanted how tips and tricks on how they train people, and got quite a few responses on that. And I'm just going to read a few of them and let you guys comment on them. How does that sound?
Go for it.
All right. The very first one, it doesn't matter what we tell them because management turns around and tells them something totally different. Management won't let us train properly. They're having the newbies take DPS straight to the street. No marking packages. Those go straight out and use load feature. They have subs working too many routes too quickly.
Yep, yes. I think when they're first learning that casing the DPS is can be very helpful. My office is one that likes to push DPS to the street right away. Yeah, I think casing the DPS can be very helpful when an RCA is starting out and learning the case, because it's in order. It's, you can weed out the junks when they get out on the street. They're not all discombobulated with something that doesn't belong there. Hence, like my route, for example, when I get Spectrum. Don't get me started on how many times a week Spectrum has to send something out to every address underneath the sun, whether there's actually a housing unit there or not. Yeah, that type of stuff. I think it really that's part helpful. As far as load truck, I do know our borrowed RCAs use it. They don't mark anything, number one, and they use load truck. To me, load truck was after I started. Package look ahead and load truck, I was already pretty much an established RCA carrier on several routes before that even came about. And so I personally can't speak on experience with using it. I see where it can be a decent tool with organizing your packages, but to me, having to look at package look ahead all freaking day long to see what you got coming up next is a waste of time.
Yep. When I was an RCA, I know that makes me sound so old, even though I'm the youngest one on this podcast. When
And
I
I've
was
been
an
with the
RCA,
post office longer than you have.
yeah, and they actually had the load truck feature on the scanners, and when I would go and do a new route, it was a great thing to use for me because I could scan the parcel and it would tell me not only the section number, but the sequence number on the route too. And I'd write the sequence number down and then I'd organize them by the sequence number. And then I could go out. I wouldn't have to mark them in the case because I just put them in sequence order. And that's how I learned to deliver in sequence order. And then after I transitioned over to learning the primary route that I'm on now, I no longer have to do the load truck feature to get them in sequence. I know the sequence in my head. And like you said, just go out, load them in order, and deliver them in order without even marking anything. But for somebody who's just starting out that doesn't know the sequence of the route and how the roads go together and things like that, I think it's a great feature to use personally.
Mm-hmm.
And I've told subs to do that because just writing the sequence number and putting them in sequence order is a lot faster than trying to find the address on the case and then trying to make sure you put it in order in that case order. So I don't know about Josh or Bill on this.
Well, I mark my parcels because, like I've said many times, I'll miss them with a marker.
Oh yeah, me too.
So if I miss them with a marker, what makes you think I'm going to get any of them right when I'm out there and not have to loop around to deliver? Just because I'll forget to look at what the next one is or forget what the next one is after I've looked. And I just put in the stage chat what comes up every time I go to either load truck or look at package look ahead. It hasn't worked for me in probably a year at this point. I don't use it except for very rare occasions. Like if I have a really large heavy box and the label is too far away to see from the truck, from the seat in the LLB, I would go to load truck and then scan it just to see what the address was. So I don't forget it when I get there and I'm looking at the parcels in other areas and miss it. And be like, oh, well, I'll find it later. Or if the address is so screwed up, you can use the load truck to see what the address is. But like I said, I don't have that function in my scanner, so.
And that's a big one. If you can't see the address, but it has the barcode on it, and like Josh said, if it's not popping up in that load truck feature, take it to your supervisor. They can punch it in the computer and get the address that way.
Yep.
Of course, if the address and the barcode are screwed up, then you're screwed on figuring out where it goes.
Unless it's an
But hey,
Amazon with a QR code.
yeah, if it's got the QR code, that can be scanned too in the load truck feature to try and find it if it's not popping up with the regular barcode.
Yes, that QR code on Amazon has been a lifesaver for half of the packages that you can't get them to scan anyways because Amazon's printers suck.
Yeah. And they're starting to put them on the postal ones too.
Yes, they are, and I have seen them on some of the, God forbid, Temu crap.
All right, the next one. This one actually came with a few comments on it. So it's a simple comment. I've told the sub to drive the route a few times on their own time just to get familiar with it. And responses to that was, I did this when I was a sub. Great tip. It's helped me a bunch on new unfamiliar routes. One less thing I have to remember. Once they're on the route, they're still unsteady the first few times, but I think it takes a little of the scare out of tackling a new route. I had a paper route years ago and I would drive it during the day taking notes so I'd be able to deliver better when it's dark. So it could help out if you're coming up on winter months and you're getting close to the end and it's starting to get dusk out. So that would help a lot of subs too. What do you guys think?
I know
Yeah.
when I got awarded the route I'm on, I went to that station and got the 4003 and with the turn by turn and went out and tried to drive it and tried to ask my predecessor, like, hey, I couldn't figure this out. How do I get to this? So I was able to ask and find out where things were, where things were hidden that I didn't see when I drove it myself, where I started.
Some of our routes, a couple of them have some pretty confusing little areas in there that, I definitely suggest them if you got the time and can do it to go out and, take that line of travel with you and go out and drive the route a good couple times just to kind of get the feel of the flow of it. And I think that also helps, especially when you're learning a case and you know the flow of the route, you can connect the two a little bit better that way too.
But who's paying me to drive it on my own time?
Not saying you have to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a benefit for yourself, just like training yourself on Rex.
See, you had to go there, didn't you?
I had to.
It
Because we
reminds me
didn't get any.
it reminds me earlier of the comment about the supervisors not paying attention, because I was at the Rex training with both of mine and neither one of them retained anything.
Well, sometimes they don't learn that way, though.
Hmm.
Remember, we talked about the different ways of learning, and if they weren't sitting there taking notes at the same time it was being taught, they probably didn't retain it because they're probably a read and write learner.
Well, maybe they didn't retain it because they had their cell phones in their hand while the training was going on.
Oh, so they were the ones that the regional manager said don't pay attention during trainings.
And they listened.
Yeah, the supervisor I went to training with isn't even in our office anymore. So,
or maybe it doesn't affect their paychecks, so they don't give a shit.
Right?
Oh, damn!
Ouch.
Did you have to be so honest?
Sorry. I'm gonna re-say that. Whoever's editing, just cut out the first part. Maybe it doesn't affect their paychecks, so they weren't as concerned.
I like the first one better.
I like the first one better.
Yeah.
Leave it
Either
in.
way, edit one of the two out.
Leave them both in.
Leave them both
Leave
in.
them both in. Yeah. That way they know we do some editing, but some things we are honest about. All right, next comment. RCA here. I've found it's helpful to make my own cards for the routes. Basically, note cards that I case to tell me what I need. Turn left here, box on tree, dogs don't get out. Turn right here, turn around here, box in bush, see photo on phone of trailer park map. Turn around after house number, hardships to know for each route. I use colored cardstock, different color per route, right on the cards where they go in the case, 1A, 2C, 5B, etc., so they could be cased up easily if a new sub were to run it blind. In my experience, the 4003s were so old and the print is so tiny, it just didn't help me much. Also, it helps to run the same route at least 3 days in a row. First half, second half, whole route, then whole route from that point on with maybe a little help a few times to get it done. This should be done before moving a sub to a new route, in my opinion. Staffing plays a role in this, though. All offices are not staffed appropriately, and it's negatively impacting everyone.
I have to agree with that. One of the things I kept from the regular that retired on the route have taken over is she does have, well, for our holds we have the red carrier alert cards, and we put we'll put a little with the little clear window plastic label holder that you get on the sides of the helicopter flat tubs, type things. And we'll write the address in and stick them in the case. That way, if it's not being held out of DPS, we'll know, to bring that mail back with us that they're on hold. But she also has blue ones that have the hardships. So we can, I don't keep them in there, but if I have somebody that hasn't ran my route before running it, then I will case those up for them. That way they know, and it says right on there where the box is for the hardship. Also, my business closed for Saturdays that don't get mail. I've got some for them too, because my whole industrial park doesn't get mail on Saturdays, and my chamber and township offices don't get mail on Saturdays. So that's really helpful as well. I use those when I first started running that route. Of course, I don't need those anymore. I leave the hold ones in there because sometimes I don't think about it, but it helps just in case. And so yeah, definitely those type of things, those little things that you can put in a case for those little extras. I had made a cheat sheet for an RC in the past on our one route that we dubbed as turnaround because that's literally all you do in that POA is turn around. And my supervisor and postmaster actually printed out my cheat sheets and put it right in at the case. That way, if a newer RCA or a borrowed RCA is running that route, it's just got, to remember you're turning around at this address, or there's that one spot when you're heading up 23, you're hitting all the side roads, but there's one where you got to go up 23 for 4 boxes and then retrace back down to that road and hang a left rather than turning right. And I remember the first time I ran that route, I totally missed that. So that was one of those things that I tried to notate for the future for other RCAs to run that. So yeah, I definitely agree that having some sort of cheat sheet or cheat cards of some sort for those special little circumstances definitely helps.
I've got a laminated one in my truck, so that when somebody's on there, they know where the vacants are. Okay, and the holds. This is one I came up with. I got tongue depressor sticks, painted them red, and wrote "hold" on them with a black magic marker, so that when the sub's there, they can look for them right off the bat. And I put them right in the slot; they fit perfectly in the slot. And unless it's my speedy PTF that does my route once every blue moon, these guys catch it every time, and they look down, they see the holds. My holds are on standard hold forms or pieces, white pieces of paper with a black magic marker, and you can see it from 20 feet. But they often won't visually remember to look down all the time. So those red the tongue depressor sticks really catches their attention.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, you've got the tongue depressor sticks, and I got the plastic red carrier alert cards put in there. So similar
Yeah.
circumstance. Yep.
All right. I keep an alphabetical cheat sheet under the plastic on my route. It gives every street, each block, row, and shelf location, 6A, etc.
One of the things I do with new RCAs is I have them go wrap around or go through the case and write down all the street names, then put them in alphabetical order, and then write what shelf and case number they're on. So when they're casing raw mail, they say, all right, more Mounting Rock. All right, I know it's on this shelf, this case, this shelf, this case, this shelf, this case. To help
Yeah.
them learn it.
I have plastic, not plastic. I have cream colored business cards taped onto the each shelf and to each wing, showing the streets, and the numbers on that street for that particular shelf. And like with Rosewood Drive, it's on my first shelf, on my left, and there's a line underneath it because after you do Rosewood, you never see it again, so you don't have to look for it down the up and down 5 rows. It's there, it's done, it's gone. And I have done that all the way around my case with three whole pieces and a wing. Anything you can do to make it easier for the sub, helps you out because you won't come back to a mess every holiday or drop day.
Right.
Or
And
even as something as a regular going to a new route.
Yeah.
If it's not something that they ran as an RCA, so they're not familiar with it, and it just happens to be the route that they got, that anything like that is definitely helpful.
yeah, but shouldn't they get 8, depending on the size of the route, 8 to 24 hours of familiarization assistance?
Well, if the other carrier's gone. No, that doesn't
No.
always happen. No.
Per 100, there's like an hour allowance.
Yeah, something like
I,
that.
I can I can see that I can see the chart when there's a change or anything like that, but I can't pull it up off the top of my head. Oh, that's because I'm bald.
But back to what you were saying on what you have at your case, Bill.
Hmm.
That is, I knew someone that had, that did that also. And when I was in RCA, I was on that case, but you're still having to look through the whole case, or at the whole case to find the street where this is all on a piece. You just look right down a piece of paper in alphabetical order. You just find, like you said, what, Roselock or something like that?
Rosewood.
Rosewood. You just go down to the R's, find Rosewood, and say, all right, it's on first case, third shelf, and that's the only place you'll see it.
Also, for visual learners, when you're learning a case, each street has its own colored different symbol on the
Yep.
case. And that really helped me quite a bit as a visual person to get to know, at least the color right offhand or the symbol of what that street was if I was looking for something.
You're talking on the labels,
Yes.
Yeah.
all right?
See,
Which is
now I'm an old
which
head,
is
and I do
which
that
is
with the end of a street, okay, and then I use a pink marker to segregate the different CBUs on my route. And let me tell you, it's not just for the subs. It quickens my eye-hand coordination, knowing exactly where it is before I even think about it.
well, that's
Nice.
like when I get new labels, I put with a black Sharpie a line at the end of a street or CBU, and then red. I use red for if it's like a soft break off point. Like, for example, on a really light day, you can go 2-3 blocks, where on a heavier day, you only go one, to one corner.
And I use magenta for cul-de-sac. No, I
I
don't,
much
but
prefer periwinkle.
you would.
Either way, it's a pink.
Yes. But
Periwinkle is more
these
of a
are all
blue.
just all ideas to help people learn the case, learn the route, become proficient, and make them better carriers.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I
That's all
said
we're trying to do.
I've got 3 new ones coming into train here coming up as we're coming into peak season. So that's always the worst time to start, but it happens. And my thing is if a new RCA gets through Christmas the first time around, they're golden, especially if they're starting as that
Yeah,
season's picking up.
yeah.
Yep.
I started my shadow day was the day after Christmas. Was my shadow day. So I came in at the very tail end of it.
That's
But the
like
middle
December
of winter
26th.
in the snow belt.
Yeah,
Yep. All
Yeah.
right. We make
that was fun.
we
Yeah, I
so next.
started mid to late October, and my regular already had vacation planned for the end of November, so I had
Well,
that good week.
the one that I'm training this week is going on the route that the carrier does like to take those 3 to 5 day weekends. So we'll see how
I
this works
started
out.
in April. I
Yeah,
started
you
in
started.
spring.
Yeah, as things had died down and
I had plenty of
Nice,
time to learn the
easy.
route, plenty of time to learn where everything was before I hit Christmas peak season. And it took that long for me to learn the routes and have everything click for me. And I was doing 11, 12-hour days as an RCA learning these routes. And then I get into peak season doing 11 to 12-hour days in peak. Then when I came off of peak, everything was just flowing smoothly. I was doing 8-hour days at most. It was great.
Must be
But
nice.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's why I was like saying this past week is like the calm before the storm for me because I know how this route gets. So,
Yeah. I started
Or-
before they had parcels.
yeah, yeah.
So did quite a few
Before
other people we know.
scanners.
Yeah, before we never had scanners when I first started.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't forget he was riding horse before Bucky to deliver the mail.
I
Oh.
used my bicycle with a basket on it.
Some
And
people
it could
still
fit
do.
the whole route in the basket.
It
Some
was a
people
big
still
ass
do.
basket, okay? Big.
They just they just bought new bicycles for people. Didn't you see the posts all over the place?
Nope.
They finally replaced the one big wheel ones.
Yeah, no, not for rural though. I could imagine trying to take a bike down some of them rural roads. No,
Mm.
thank you.
I'll take a bike over a Metris.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's been the other big one is the yeah, yeah.
I broke a Metris the first time I drove it on my regular route.
Mm.
I popped 3 pieces of plastic off of that thing on my rural route. So next comment we got was, we make what we call route books. Has all addresses in route order and notes beside, such as dog hazards, etc., and a cheat sheet with road numbers, and then beside it where it's located on the case. I also put arrows inside mailboxes pointing to the houses.
Dang.
That
That
So
definitely could be helpful. The arrows when you're, you know, when you have those roads that have all the mailboxes on one side. So, and people, and especially if, I mean, I have some of those routes that I've ran to where, it's evens going one way, odds on the other side, but you're going up, you're going the one way and it's odds, and all of a sudden you have an even house number right in the middle of them. Just in the middle, nowhere. Yeah, those ones tend to throw you off. So I could definitely see, especially on the roads when it's evens on one side and odds on the other, and all the mailboxes are on one side, and somebody may not grasp, or if you have to hit a county line, we've got one route like that too. That it's the 4,000s until you hit the county line, and as soon as you cross that county line, it switches to the 7,000s. Instead of going up in the 4,000s, it's now going down, and your odds and evens switch sides.
Yeah, when you told me that way back when, I'm like, what?
Yeah, so you go like from 49.28 to 7,900 or 79.99, and now 79.99 is on the same side of the street the 49.28 was. And then
Or no,
it's yep.
one of the routes I was covering when I was in RCA, after they did a route adjustment, they pulled one street off of the one route and gave it to another. Well, in the original route that had it, that street, he goes down alleyways, and all the mailboxes are on the same side. And some of the houses, the alley is running behind that main road they took off of him. So now
Yep.
you have two carriers going down the same alley. And there were a couple times where both of them were back to, two LOVs back to back.
I have one road on my route that Chester Road, but you also have addresses for Pine Street, which is the next road up, but all the mailboxes are on the back side of the houses. So you have 425 Pine Street, and then the next box is 425 Chester. And that house is actually on that street, is on the left-hand side, the front facing that road, whereas the one for Pine, the front door faces the other street, so you have the back of the house where the mailbox is. Yeah. That's on my route. And that's where learning names comes in handy as well.
Yep.
I got a cute story for you about mailboxes.
Yes, sir.
In several sections of my old route, they had several crossbars up there with multiple mailboxes where the odds were on the right and the evens were on the left, but the mailboxes obviously were on the right hand side. And I advised the people that they should put up number signs for their driveways so we know where to deliver parcels. And everybody but one person complied. And after the third request, I said to hell with it. And then I noticed one day he spray painted his number on a tree. I said, well, that's the cheap way of doing it. He was later taken to court for defacing a historic tree. The tree was over 200 years old.
Oh,
It was
wow.
actually on a county historic landmark listing.
Oops.
Ouch.
He had to have an arborist come out, clean the tree, and then put a sign up. But it was like a $1,500 mistake for him. But
Mhm.
yeah, normally if you ask people, they're considerate enough to do that for you.
Oh, yeah. And I know in our area they have to anyways, for 911 purposes, but yeah.
Hmm.
And I have several addresses that butt up to the city route, right at the edge of the city line there, that for some reason years and years ago they changed the numbering. So instead of being 4,000 or 400 or 300, it's now 800. So they actually have both numbers on the mailbox still. So
Right.
834 and 334 because the mail still comes to both.
Yeah, but
You know?
if it's on if it's on your route, I have a similar situation. You know the
Uh-huh.
name, so you're turning for that name, not so much the address.
Yes. Yep.
Back to the basics, though. I'd like everybody's opinion in regards to. I'm an old head, so I case my DPS normally because I have half a tray of Missorts and Klingons and everything else. But in regards to doing the DPS to the street or doing up downs or the taco or anything, what do you guys find easier for yourselves?
I take my DPS to the street when I pull down. I am very meticulous. I'm not one of those like everybody else in my office who just everybody pulls down up down. We did have one taco carrier. She has since retired, but I and I case different than everybody else. I'm a spine down caser, not a spine up. So all my addresses are facing me and not the back of the case. That comes from probably years of when I would pull down and crisscross into tubs. It's just how I case. That's so when I pull down, I pull what works for me doing the up down. I use actually half trays to pull down into. I pull down, but the only time that I would crisscross or, turn something sideways, if I have DPS my raw mail that I've cased up and they don't have a flat and it's just that DPS, then I put that, it's not all standing up. It's then I have it like it would be in the DPS case. So that's
Right.
kind of a little bit how I do that. All my flats will stand up, and then my letters that are individual without flats are in, so they're not on their side. I guess that's the best way to explain it. But I have kind of stagger my flats, so I mean I do have those houses that get a ton of flats still. Every catalog underneath the frickin' sun, and in multiples. So I kind of stagger. So my address, I got one that goes more left, the next house more to the right, to the left, to the right, to the left, to the right. That way there is some sort of division there, and it's not just all pulled down into one stack and thrown in the tray.
I
Josh?
personally taco my flats, and if it gets too many of them or if it's too thick of a one, I put it out in a tub on the side and flat it out. Like, so if they have like 10 catalogs that day, I'll rubber band them together. I'll have the top pieces facing opposite, so regardless of which way it's in the in my tray at the end, I have the address facing front.
In my two dismount CBU sections, it's 5 CBUs, but it's only two different area dismounts. So I got 2 CBUs at one condo and 3 at the other, and those are the only 2 I have to dismount for. And those I'll tend to rubber band together. That way I can just grab that stack that's rubber banded and grab the DPS and then hop out. That way I'm not fishing through it at the same time.
I started
James.
out when I started as an RCA, I was casing everything, and that's because I wanted to be accurate. I wanted to make sure I had the right address for the houses, especially with all the DPS errors that we get. Except for during count or mini mail survey or any of that stuff, the DPS errors are horrendous.
Oh, not this year. This week was the first time I've actually seen my water bills actually ran through the DPS instead of having to hand sort them suckers out.
Yeah. Then after a little while, I switched to taking DPS to the street, and now I either just take it to the street or I crisscross and pull down into it. I found that if I have less than half the case has mail in it, half the active addresses have mail in it, then I'll crisscross, pull down into it because it's fast. But other than that, I'll take it to the street and do it on the street and throw the DPS errors into the outgoing mail. Let it go back to the plant that way. But other than that, I mean, it takes me the same amount of time whether I pull down into it or I take the DPS to the street. If I case it all, it takes me too long in the office, and I maybe save 15 minutes on the route overall.
Yeah. My aux route, because it normally a heavy day on DPS was only a full half tray. I normally with the aux route I pulled down into the DPS. I don't on this 45K just because it is a fairly heavy route, so I don't normally pull down into my DPS. I mean, there'll be days where I have 2, 3, 4 trays of DPS with only maybe a full half tray of pull down. So yeah,
for my DPS, the CBUs, I will do a hard riffle through the DPS tray and rubber band each set of doors. So each door is separate, or if it's a lighter day, each location for the one set of townhouses. For my curbside and riding, I usually will case that DPS up. That way it's a single bundle, throw and go when I'm out there. I'd rather be, in the past, when I've taken DPS to the street, I think it takes me 1.5 times longer on the street to work the DPS than in the office.
I've gotten to the point with DPS to the street that I think I'm actually quicker with taking it to the street than I am with trying to case it up.
I know a lot of people that are like that.
With the way I pull down, it just casing the DPS up for me is just a pain. I mean, if I was pulling into my DPS, that would be one thing, but
if I have, like, for example, those rare days where flats and raw mail are really, really light, and I have 2 trays of DPS for the almost 1,000 addresses I have.
What?
I said on those rare days that I get only 2 trays of DPS, I will pull down the flats and spurs into the DPS and put my parcel markers in front of the mail in the DPS and just take it that way. But usually I have 5-pack trays.
Now, when I was using my parcel markers, I have rainbow colors. I had 4 different colors. Red's for the big stuff. I was using yellow and purple for medium-sized stuff. Green for small boxes that normally would probably fit in one mailbox. And I had bright pink for the soft stuff, for the spurs, whatever you want to call them. and that didn't get tubbed up, were too big to put in the tub with everything else. And when I was pulling down, if they didn't have any mail to pull down, they just had a parcel marker, and I turned that parcel marker on its side. So you would,
I
and then I would crisscross them. So if it was like a really exceptionally light day for flats and raw mail, I would have a rainbow of parcel markers pulled down, and you would have one would go one way, one would go another way, the next one would go straight up and down, then start it over again if there wasn't any other mail in between. That way
right, for
signifying I don't have mail for them here, but they do have a package.
like if I'm pulling into my GPS, if it's that light of a day and and there's no mail, but I have a parcel marker, I'll put a rubber band around the parcel marker so I know it's for an address between the one before and one after.
I didn't go that far.
All right, James, where are we on now?
All right, I'll give you the last comment that I've got for today. There were more comments on the post in the Rural Mail Carriers United group, but this one is probably one of the best ones I've read out of these so far. So first, I start with, quote, "I've been doing this route one way or another since year. You're not going to match me in a day, a week, or a month," end quote. Then I start with, "No one does it identically, and almost everyone modifies how they do it sooner or later. There is
Yes.
no one way. Mail is the most important part. The DPS and raw accountables. Then comes paid magazines, then USPS parcels, then UBM, grade, flats, and then any packages given to USPS by other carriers, and you can cut in reverse order. Reminder, you're supposed to ask management to cut." And from my manager, I'm adding this ad lib, was they have to actually tell district that they're cutting it as well. "Our station has new subs case DPS for their assigned route. This would be happening before you ever got to meet your sub on the workroom floor. I do tell subs I prefer accuracy over speed because they can always leave unknown for carrier review. Management prefers speed with accuracy, which is unrealistic for a newbie. But I try to reassure them, ask any questions. God, one asked if they got to leave at 8 hours on the clock. Feel free to ask feel free to ask anyone a question, not just me, and to relax. We've all had the I want to scream, cry, throw mail feeling one time or another. There's now cell phones and GPS and look ahead on the scanner. Then I ask, where do they want to start? And do you want a cookie? I want a cookie.
Oatmeal
I
Me
want a
raisin.
too.
cookie.
I
Yeah.
have one of my bed and breakfasts is on Lake Huron that orders a lot of Amazon. If the one lady is working laundry that day and sees me pull in, she always gives me 3 of the chocolate chunk cookies out of the cookie jar on the desk. I don't see her all the time. I mean, I could help myself, but I don't do that. But speaking of cookies, anyways. But yeah, no, definitely, you're gonna change the way you do things as you go. I know I have changed several ways, several times. I started in a POV, I pulling down into tubs, I've pulled down into half trays in a POV. I continue to carry I used to drove my postmaster crazy when I transferred into this office and I was pulling down LLVs into tubs. Absolutely drove her crazy. She just did not like that. And then when I had to switch POVs, had to get a different car, and I couldn't pull down into a tub because I couldn't set it on my lap with the way my dash came out, I then started pulling down into half trays, and I've kept that throughout, even with the LLVs. You change stuff up. I used to mark everything. As a POV driver, I marked everything. Every package I had, it was marked. Because when you're packing a POV, you get to a point to where you're just stuffing it where it fits. And sometimes in an LLV too, you have those days. And now like I said, I changed it up. I'm not marking anything anymore. I first started by tubbing up the smalls in order and putting them in that way, which I still do. I load my truck in order. I the last 2 weeks straight, I have not marked a single package. And I can probably say I've only had to backtrack and turn around for a package that I've forgotten 3 times, which is probably less than I would do if they were marked. But you change, and and if you see something, don't, especially as a new RCA, and you see, ask other carriers what works for them. Don't be afraid to steal an idea or a way of doing things if it's going to help you do it. Don't be afraid to ask, if one way is not working for you, don't be afraid to try something else, and don't be afraid to ask for trying it a different way as well.
You just made the point I was going to make, that I worked at a box store part-time as an RCA when they first opened in the area, and the HR person they had come up to help get everyone up to speed in orientation said, deal with pride.
Yes.
If you see someone doing something that you think will make your life easier, take the idea and run with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
I would say, especially if you're newer, if you see someone doing something, ask them what and how they're doing it. Try it one time, even if it's for just a small section of the route. See if it works for you. If it works for you, great, keep doing it. If not, no harm, no foul.
And
You only
OJ, yeah. And as an OJI, we had an RCA Shadow Day this past week, and I went up to talk to him because why they had him come in an hour after start time, I have no clue. I said, "What's the point of shadowing if you're not shadowing from the very beginning throughout, just coming in and riding the route? To me, that's not a shadow day." I'm going to take that up with management, trust me. The carrier he was shadowing did bring him over where I was casing flats and was, showing him because I was casing my pre-sorted bundles at that time. So, he was, just kind of explaining to him. And I had a quick little moment break as I was waiting on clerks to finish sorting parcels. And I walked over and I just happened to ask him, I said, how do you learn the best? Do you work, and I explained the different ways, and he told me, he's hands on. I said, all right, that's going back to the last episode when we did the different ways of learning. That right there was a key to, all right, let me find out what's the best way he's going to learn right off the bat before we even get him in this case touch and mail.
Yeah, like I said, I changed my way multiple times since I was an RCA to now. And even as a regular carrier, I changed my way into the crisscross method that I learned actually from an RCA that had transferred to our office from another office. So there's, no matter what, somebody's going to do something differently. And that different way may be a faster way for you, it may be a slower way for you. You never know until you actually try it. And don't just do it once, try it a few times just to see if it changes. Because you do it
Absolutely.
once, you're not going to get up to speed on it because you're trying to remember how it's done. But once you get the feel for it, it may actually flow faster for you and run smoother for you than previous methods you've done. So
well,
don't always just fall into just a single rut. Try new things sometimes.
that's
And
what I said. Try it one time to see if it's something that you think will actually work for you. If you don't, after one time you're like, there's no way I can do, this is going to work for me. I just can't grasp it. No. Then obviously you just pack it up. But if you're like, you know what, this isn't too bad, you try it again. And after like a week, you're like, yeah, this isn't saving me any time. You go back to what you were doing.
Well, even an old head like myself, I mean, my flat volume and DPS volume is so high that for me the one bundle system works best. Okay, and I'm an old taco head. I'll put the first one in there and then stand everything up on the spine. Throw my DPS. Like I said, I get half a tray of miss sorts and everything in my DPS. But every once in a while, rarely, I get the opportunity not to case the DPS up, and I'll turn around and have minimal flats and raw mail in there, and I'll work it right into the DPS. But more times than not, I have more than enough publications where, for me, it's more proficient to do it, the case the DPS, and then I hit the street, and it's bam, bam, bam. It's one bundle, no sorting, no. When I stop at a mailbox, I'm lucky I get my 5 seconds because I'm driving through 98 miles an hour. No, okay, 96. But well, I believe in the speed more than accuracy. Really,
Well, you
Yeah,
have
there
to.
are. Yeah, okay.
yeah,
You have to keep up with the speed matrix.
yeah. Well, surprisingly, my speed matrix is only 16 miles an hour.
Wow, yours is lower than mine.
Well, I'm
Well,
over
I
90.
don't.
You
I
know,
don't
and then
remember.
there's those that have their trucks that are in the shop every 4 to 6 weeks because, yeah.
Brake pads.
Yep. I actually just had to write my truck up for brakes, and my lap belt is starting to fray, and that's a safety issue.
Nope.
Oh, my flashers intermittently don't want to work. So when I first start out, they may not come on until I've used that turn signal half dozen times. Or, I shut the truck off and they come on. And then I start it back up and they're back off till I use that turn signal a half dozen times. I'm on US 23. I want my flashers working.
Only the best equipment for you.
Oh, I'm telling you. I'm telling you.
And don't
See what? If
forget
I
if that
get my truck back, I'd be a happy camper.
and don't forget you can also get that seat replaced if it's broken down.
Yeah, that'll probably be eventually. That seat so far is still all right, but the seat belt is. I noticed on the casing there where you pull it out of, there's a crack, and that's where it's catching and it's causing it to fray.
Well, you can
Yeah.
always be like the RCA we got and drove the whole route with the emergency brake on
Oh,
and came
jeez.
back and said to the supervisor, something wrong with the truck. It smells like it's burning something. And they're like, well, what's it smell like? And they said, well, it's really pungent and this and that. So they went out and they looked at the truck, and here the back brakes were on fire. I'm pulling up in my truck going, that's not good.
Nope, it's not.
Was
All right,
was that another LLV for the records of burned down equipment?
No, that was an FFV. It wasn't an LLV.
But did it get burned down?
No, they put it out. Not because they knew how to operate a fire extinguisher, but there was a hose right there close to the carrier's parking spot. So,
Oh, okay. Hey, Kristen,
Yes.
I heard you had an announcement you wanted to make.
Well, I'm not gonna make a full announcement, but be on the lookout for something special, possibly later this week. And might have a special guest joining us that may take us on a trip and continue to go on further, and might have to deal with a little bit of arbitration in there too at the end.
ooh,
I know already. I know already, and you didn't tell me.
It has been in the works for quite a long time. I will say that. Hopefully, it may come to fruition, and and if it does, there will be a special episode at the end of this week.
So everybody hold your breath.
All right, you can breathe.
If they held it until it actually happened, they would all probably pass out.
That's all right.
Exactly.
So, all right, let's end this thing tonight.
All right. Josh.
Be safe out there. It's getting darker earlier, especially now that we changed the times. Don't get overwhelmed. If you do, take a step back, take a deep breath, and step back in. Have a good week. I will not see you guys next Sunday, or will speak to you guys next Sunday because it's my state booster meeting is next weekend. So I will be attending that, but I will see you the week after.
Safe travels to and from. So I know you got a little bit of a drive there. James.
Yeah, Josh, we expect a full report in 2 weeks, in the 2 weeks episode on your booster. And
Oh,
for
it's a bunch of
everybody,
old people hanging out, talking, giving updates on insurance plans and other stuff.
yeah. Well, a lot of people think that carriers have to get it quick, get it fast, know it all, and get it done, especially management. But it is up to you to be accurate. Accuracy breeds speed. Speed does not breed accuracy. You can do the route fast, but you won't be accurate. But if you are accurate, you'll eventually get fast at the route. Don't let people pressure you. Try new things if you want to. But just remember, at the end of the day, the only thing that's important is that the mail gets delivered. And I will back any carrier that does their job efficiently and safely any day. Just remember, no matter what, we're all in this together.
Absolutely. Thank you. Hey, Bill, your last final words for this evening.
Well, the kind of fork off of James there. We are all one craft, and there's a lot of comments on social media that to me is disturbing because of the fact that they talk down to people. You don't know if they're brand new. You don't know if they have a learning disability. You don't know what's going on in their lives. Please, non-dues paying, dues paying, please treat everybody respectfully on social media. If somebody asks a question and they start out, I know this might be a dumb question, please take into consideration they don't know and they're looking for help. They're looking for your assistance. So be courteous enough to give them a respectful answer.
Amen.
Now that we do have the time change and the darkness in, folks, be ever present of your situation on the road. You don't know where that dog's coming from or in the dark. Take the tips from everybody here with the fingertip gloves with lights or headlights or whatever suits you best. But be extra careful out there if you're out after dark. And, remember, you're the most important delivery of the day. Get home to your family, your loved ones, because the post office will replace you in a heartbeat without missing you. We will miss you. So be safe and get home to your loved one.
Thank you, guys. Everybody brought some good key points out there, especially with this time change that happened this week. And if you are in the northern regions with the impending season coming upon us shortly, to definitely stay safe and stay warm properly. Stay tuned for possible special episode at the end of the week, and well, I'll be back Sunday except for Josh. So everybody take care, have a safe week, and we'll talk to you later.
La, 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 la.